go behind the headlines. It's a quarter after, and we've reported this week on Monday's vote of the Denver City Council. They took their first reading of a ordinance to control the public use of marijuana in the city. Now that marijuana is legal and it's a constitutional right to possess and use up to an ounce of marijuana. Now, on their first reading, they passed this new bill, this new ordinance, 7-5. And part of this ordinance has to do with, whether or not marijuana can be around the pedestrian 16th Street Mall, that kind of touristy destination, and what is the rules of displaying it around parks and so forth. And not much controversy there. But the big controversy in this bill is that they want to define public smoking. It's going to be illegal to smoke in public, which is fine. That was something that was considered as part of the amendment, is whether or not there'd be public smoking bans and so forth. But they want to define public smoking so broadly as that any smoking that can be visible to the public, regardless of where it takes place, would count as public smoking. So we are talking about them banning you be able to go out into your backyard and smoke out there in your backyard if your neighbors could see you doing it. This goes so far as to say you couldn't smoke on your front porch if people walking by on the sidewalk could see the joint in your hand. And I don't think they are really working out the unintended consequences of what a law like this would be. First of all, what are we regulating here? Smoking marijuana or masturbation? I mean, it seems like a masturbation rule, right? Hey, it's okay if you do it. We got no problem with that. Just don't let anyone see you, for God's sake. Don't whip that thing out in public. It's a joint, not a dick, okay? What is the big problem here? And it's especially frustrating, as Mason Tvert points out, that someone could drink beer in their backyard. They can host a party in their backyard with kegs, even. And it wouldn't be any sort of problem. It would be perfectly legal. But to want to fine and punish people for smoking a joint on their own property is completely counter to the constitutional right that was established by Amendment 64. And especially considering that in Denver, it passed by about a 2-1 margin. So the people clearly wanted us to be left alone if we were smoking pot and not bugging other people. And that's where the rub lies here, is that it's the question of whether or not we're bugging other people. Because what you get from the soccer moms and whoever's complaining about this, and I think I read one of the council members saying, or responding to this, that, oh goodness, if our children were to see adults smoking pot on their own property, it would undermine all the messages we're trying to send the children about how bad pot is. Well, you don't get to send that message anymore, that adults don't get to choose pot, because guess what? They do. The law has changed now. It is now a constitutionally recognized right in the state of Colorado for an adult to possess and use cannabis. You're going to have to figure out a way to teach your kids about that. Now, you've figured out a way to teach your kids not to drink beer, even though there's a Coors Field in the middle of downtown. You figured that out, right? You figured out how to keep your kids away from cigarettes, even though they're available at the age of 18 in Colorado, I believe, or maybe it's 19, but I think it's 18. You figured this out. Why is this so hard to figure out with newly legalized cannabis? And part of the reason is because it has to do with demonization. It has to do with this wanting to cast the users of cannabis as somehow bad rather than the use of the cannabis itself. But they're not thinking about the unintended consequences of this. If a cannabis smoker is not going to be allowed to smoke outside where someone can see them, they're going to smoke inside. And if you're worried about the harm to kids from secondhand smoke, and maybe a parent wants to be a little considerate of that and wants to go outside and smoke their joint away from their children, they can't. Your unintended consequences forcing all of the pot smokers back inside, possibly around their own kids. And again, it's just contrary to the will of the voters. When it was treat marijuana like alcohol, then let's treat marijuana like alcohol. And even if we allow the smoking a pot in our own homes, we're still not to the point of treating it like alcohol. There's no limit on how much alcohol you can buy. There's all sorts of places where you can go and party with people using alcohol indoors and outdoors. But at least one step at a time. Let's at least get to the point where we're allowed to smoke it in our own backyards and our own front porches, for God's sake. It's just prohibition by another name. If you're not allowed to smoke pot at your own home, if you're required to be completely secret while smoking pot, it's the vice that dare not be seen.
Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you